So Dr. Anil Kumar Gunda is a leading pediatric ophthalmologist from Kurnool Modern Eye Hospital and had his preliminary postgraduate training and fellowship at Arvind Eye Hospital, Madurai. And he continued for a short stint as a consultant there itself before he moved on to the private practice. So today he'll be speaking to us on exotropia diagnosis and its management. Over to you, Dr. Anil Kumar.
Thank you very much for the AOS team, madam. I'll be speaking on exotropia, few types of exotropia. We all know exotropia is an outward deviation which is confirmed by a Hertzberg reflex and cover and cover test and ruling out positive angle kappa. And pathophysiology varies from defective or imbalance in the Virgin system, disruption in the normal binocular processing to the visual cortex, or early disruption of binocular vision early in life, or monocular visual deprivation early in life. So leading to various types of exotropias. So types of exotropias, we have constant and intermittent exotropias, and today I will be speaking mainly on one case of infantile exotropia and 2 cases of intermittent exotropias, and take you into the discussion. So as Meena madam has detailedly explained about strabismus evaluation, detailed history, good ocular examination and strabismus evaluation is necessary to coming to diagnosis of what type of strabismus it is, and also give us an insight into when to intervene for surgery. So the case 1 is a 2-year-old kid who presented with large angle exotropia at a very early age, squinting at a very early age, and on examination child had an alternating fixing with equal dominance. So this is a case of infantile exotropia. So usually infantile exotropias are not associated with any other systemic or ocular associations. And the other differential diagnosis for primary infantile exotropia is an early onset intermittent exotropia. So there are other types of secondary infantile exotropias, a large list, but usually these are associated with other ocular systemic associations. So this particular child who presented to us at around 2 years of age. So how do we manage these types of infantile exotropias? So usually amblyopia is very rare in these particular infantile exotropias, and they are very large angle. If a repeatable measurement is available and the child is cooperative, early intervention has good results. And our surgical intention to have a correction within 8% diopters of orthotropia, and surgical success is anywhere between 25 to 30% according to many literatures, and patterns have to be addressed in this particular type of exotropias. And X pattern is usually because of tight lateral rectus, and that has to be kept in mind. So then I'll discuss 2 cases of intermittent exotropia briefly. So the second case is a 3-year-old child who presents with squinting occasionally, complained by his grandparents, and closing his lid in the sunlight, suggestive of diplophotophobia. And this particular child has intermittent exotropia for distance and exophoria for near, and is a myope around -3 diopters in both the eyes, and have a small deviation for distance and much more lesser deviation for near. So how do we go about it? And what happens in this particular type of, why is intermittent exotropia different from the other type of exotropias? Because it starts with exophoria for distance and continues in nature, and ends up as a constant XT for near and distance. So why is this happening? So in intermittent exotropia, it is thought to have, there is a theory of hemiretinal suppression, that is bilateral bitemporal hemiretinal suppression, so which actually promote the eyes to diverge. So that's the reason why from exophoria, the children start slowly developing from exophoria to intermittent XT to exotropias. So Burian and Duans have similar classifications of exotropias based on the amount of deviation for near and distance, and also the high AC by A ratio. So how do we follow these children of intermittent exotropias, and when to intervene these particular children? So this is one important thing for postgraduates, that is the Newcastle scoring. So home control and clinic control are two different entities, starting from 0 to 3. 0 is no squint noted at all, and 3 is manifest squint. And in the clinic, 0 is corrects before the blink, and 2 is continue to manifest after the blink, both for near and distance. And the combined score of more than 3, or few studies which say more than 4, or right persons to be considered for surgical intervention. So this child has come with -3 diopters, and he's 3-year-old. So whether to intervene and correct the myopia in this particular child. Ideally, a child at that age, we would observe for a few more months for it to correct. But this child is intermittent XT, and we want his fusional convergence to improve. So these concave lenses, they stimulate the fusional convergence. That's the reason why we correct high myopes, anisometropia, and astigmatism in children with intermittent exotropia, but we undercorrect hypermetropia, and high AC by ratio children also benefit by correction of myopia. So this child we have managed with non-surgical treatment, and the next child is a 3-year-old child, 7-year-old child, where the squinting is keeping on increasing over a period of time. So now the squinting for distance has become manifest, and intermittent exotropia for near. Vision is good, a very small refractive error in the left eye, and the deviation is little larger deviation for distance and less deviation, and more deviation between discrepancy for distance and near more than 10 diopters. So why is this discrepancy between distance and near in intermittent exotropia important? Because that's how, that is where we diagnose which type of intermittent exotropia. And so there comes the patch test. The patch test of Scobie and Thurin, where we patch one eye for an hour and then re-evaluate the amount of deviation. When the near deviation starts increasing, that's when we diagnose it as a pseudo-divergence excess. And that's how we differentiate the true divergence and pseudo-divergence, because and that helps us in surgical to decide which type of surgery we have to take in. So what is far distance measurement for intermittent exotropias? So apart from 6 meters, we also do a far distance measurement for the intermittent exotropias. Usually it is thought to bring out larger angles with far distance measurement. After we do the patching for 1 hour, we do a far distance measurement, closing one eye, and it brings out a larger angle. And it is thought to increase the surgical result by more than 50%. So AC by ratio can be measured after the patch test with the help of lens gradient method, and then again this gives a diagnosis of true divergence excess. So we have to look for the patterns and look for lateral incompetence. Again, surgical decision is based on lateral incompetence. So the non-surgical methods are usually for waiting period before we take them for surgery. First we have to address the anti-suppression, then we have to give the convergence exercises. And usually high minus lenses help in controlling for a period of time. So when to intervene gives with the help of new causal scoring system, and apart from that, an increase in the deviation or development of suppression or decrease in stereopticity, we have to decide on going on surgery. So goals of surgery in intermittent exotropia should be overcorrect in older children and correct for orthotropia in younger children to prevent consecutive ESO. So surgical procedures usually differ for different type of exotropias. For divergence excess, we prefer bilateral lateral rectus resection and bimedial resection for convergence insufficiency. 1 more minute, 30 seconds more. So for between the basic intermittent exotropias and pseudo-divergence excess, the recess resect in one eye or bilateral rectus rectus can be considered depending upon the presence of amblyopia and refractive error and various other issues. So, surgical procedures in children less than 5 years, we should not overcorrect. Chance of amblyopia and consecutive ESO are very high. So whenever there is an undercorrection, we can give non-surgical methods and we can wait for a longer period of time and again recorrect them. Whenever there is overcorrection more than 20% diopters, maybe we have to intervene and correct early and plan for an adjustable sutures. And results are usually not so good in the long term over a period of 10 years for intermittent exotropia in terms of stereopsis, but restoration of fusion and near distance is much good between around 40 to 80%. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Dr. Arun, some
Yeah,
questions? Here?
yeah. I would like to ask Dr. Pradeep Sharma, sir, two questions. One is the importance of AC by A ratio in making the surgical decision in exotropias.
Okay, so I think in intermittent exotropias also AC by A ratio is important. First of all, I think it's a good question because mostly we associate AC by A ratio for accommodative esotropes, but it does make a difference to lesser extent though, even in exotropes, because it will also have a bearing in your near distance disparity or manifestation of the exotropia for distance and near. And as Dr. Anil Gunda has already very nicely shown, that the Scobie and the Burian's method he had mentioned about patching the eye, but after that we should also do a +3 diopter test, which was described by Brown, and I think Kushner has very nicely mentioned that this should always be done after the patch for 1 hour. It should not be done prior to that, otherwise it misleads you. So once you have patched it for 1 hour and you still find there is a near distance pseudo or simulated divergence excess is still there, you give a +3 diopter to the fixing eye and then see whether the basic type of exotropia is becoming there or it's still a simulated divergence excess. So that is where one can be the role of AC by ratio. Even on the near being higher, that can be AC by ratio. The people who have a high AC by ratio may be having a higher deviation for distance because of that reason.